Marco Rubio to the USA Secretary of State to tell the Jamaican government that Jamaica is not in Africa. Jamaica is in the USA's backyard and back pocket, hence Jamaica cannot behave like Burkina Faso. The U.S. Secretary of State is set to meet with Jamaican government officials next week. Published Saturday, March 22, 2025 at 12:11 a.m. United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio is set to visit Jamaica in the coming days, weeks after threatening visa revocations for CARICOM states that fail to end their Cuban medical programs. A Gleaner source within the Washington embassy confirmed Rubio's visit, but declined to comment further, noting that they were not authorized to speak on the matter. The source did say, however, that Rubio is expected to meet with Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness, Minister of National Security, Dr. Horace Chang, and Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, among other government officials. The U.S. Department of State did not immediately respond to Gleaner queries about the visit. Only Thursday, Johnson-Smith asserted that Jamaica's Cuban medical cooperation program is not an example of trafficking, amid the U.S. visa restrictions on officials from countries that engage Cuban healthcare workers. Johnson-Smith said a review of the program was initiated before international scrutiny emerged and that improvements are being made to its administration. Jamaica's partnership with Cuba in healthcare dates back to 1976, providing critical support to local public health facilities through agreements upheld by successive administrations. Given the MOU's, or Memorandum of Understanding's, expiration last year, we had already begun a review process before international concerns were raised, Johnson-Smith said in a statement issued on Thursday. While we have identified a few areas for alignment with our own overseas labor programs, we are confident that the Cuban program is a legitimate bilateral cooperation program, not an example of trafficking. Why is the USA threatening to put restrictions on Jamaica unless they end the Cuban medical program? The U.S. is using visa restrictions as leverage over Jamaica and other Caribbean nations to force a rethinking or end to their cooperation with Cuba's medical missions. U.S. officials, led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, claim that the Cuban medical program amounts to forced labor that enriches the Cuban regime. In the U.S. view, Cuban doctors, nurses, and other medical professionals are being exploited by the Cuban government. Part of their wages are withheld and their freedoms are restricted, which the U.S. equates to labor trafficking. Jamaica, along with other Caribbean nations, has long depended on these Cuban medical professionals to support their healthcare systems, especially in underserved areas. However, by threatening to revoke visas for government officials and their families from countries that continue to support the program, the U.S. is pressuring these nations to reconsider or end their involvement with Cuban medical missions. Critics, including many Caribbean leaders, argue that the U.S. threat is politically motivated and would cause serious harm to local healthcare systems that rely on the expertise and cost-effectiveness of Cuban medical support. Now, would it be fair to say that this is an example of why Jamaica cannot think like Burkina Faso? Jamaica is in America's backyard and would need to adhere to America's rules and regulations. While African countries would be free, to some extent, to ignore America's restrictions and do as they see best for their countries. At the same time, many African countries, including Burkina Faso, face their own set of external influences and dependencies. While African nations might appear to have a bit more latitude in setting their policies because they're not in the immediate U.S. backyard, they still navigate a complex global landscape where powerful actors, such as the U.S., China, and the EU, play major roles. Their decision-making isn't made in a vacuum. It's shaped by economic aid, trade relationships, security concerns, and diplomatic alliances. In short, both regions are subject to external pressures, but the nature and intensity of that influence differ due to historical, geographic, and economic factors. Rather than suggesting one thinks in a particular way, it's more accurate to say that each region's policies reflect its unique geopolitical context. For example, recent reporting shows that Caribbean leaders are actively pushing back against U.S. pressures, such as visa restrictions targeting Cuban medical missions, emphasizing the crucial role these programs play in their healthcare systems. This demonstrates that even in America's backyard, there is room for defiance and independent policy choices, albeit within a more constrained environment. Meeting with Caribbean leaders. Earlier this month, Rubio announced an expansion of the U.S.-Cuba visa restriction policy to include foreign government officials and their families whose countries are involved in Cuba's overseas medical mission program. Rubio, who is Cuban-American, described Cuba's overseas medical missions as an oppressive program that enriches the Cuban government through the exploitation and forced labor of Cuban workers. Several CARICOM heads of state have declared their commitment to the program, stating that they are prepared to lose their visas to keep it active in their respective countries. The Holness administration's position remains unclear. According to reports from the Miami Herald on Friday, Rubio will travel next week to the Caribbean as part of a three-nation tour where he will meet with leaders. On Wednesday, the report said, Rubio is expected to travel to Jamaica where he will be hosted by Holness for talks. He will then travel on to Guyana and Suriname where he will meet with their respective presidents, Dr. Mohammed Irfaan Ali and Chandrika Persad Chan Santoki. Kimone, Francis at Gleaner Jam.com. See link to the Gleaner article in the description section of this post. Thanks for watching this video. To support this channel, please click on the subscribe button. Share this video in your WhatsApp groups and send it to all your friends. Remember to let us know what you think about this video by leaving your comments below. Please keep your comments respectful. God bless you, God bless the Jamaican Parliament, and God bless Jamaica. Until my next video, peace and love.